Coming up on this Wednesday edition of Daybreak, ministers will present their plans for tackling excessive regulations in specific industries as President Park hosts a second regulatory reform meeting at the presidential office. North Korea confirms its plan to transport its 273-member Incheon Asian Games delegation by air starting next Thursday. Plus, Islamic State releases a video purporting to show the beheading of American journalist Steven Sotloff. It says the murder is retaliation for the Obama administration's continued airstrikes in Iraq. Daybreak begins now. Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Wednesday, September 3rd here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broome and you are tuned in to Daybreak. Our top story this morning, round 2 of President Park Geun-hye's regulatory reform meeting kicks off later on this Wednesday at the presidential office of Cheongwa-dae. President Park and related ministers will review the progress made from their first meeting and listen to suggestions from all levels of society, all walks of life. The ministers will also present plans for tackling specific industries like the internet economy and city construction to stimulate the sluggish economy. This second meeting was scheduled for last month but was delayed after President Park urged the ministries to address the outdated regulations pointed out in the first meeting in March before holding this second round of discussions. And President Park is pressing North Korea to come forward for inter-Korean talks. Speaking at an event with members of the National Unification Advisory Council on Tuesday, the president said the South Korean government has proposed talks on several occasions now, and now it's time for Pyongyang to open the closed door, as she put it. President Park reiterated that both sides need dialogue to build trust in order to achieve, hopefully, a peaceful unification. She said unification would be the most valuable asset that can be passed down to the next generation. And turning now to the growing attention over Pyongyang's foreign relations, diplomatic sources say that North Korea is going to send an envoy to Europe later this week, and this trip coincides with a visit by North Korea's foreign minister to New York City later in the month, this raising speculation that North Korea is attempting to re-engage with the international community. Our Hwang Sang-hee has this report.
A possible trip to Europe by a seasoned North Korean diplomat is drawing further attention to Pyongyang's recent diplomatic overture. Kang Seok-ju, secretary of the Central Committee of the Workers' Party of Korea, will reportedly visit Germany, Belgium, Switzerland, and Italy starting late this week. Given his status in North Korea, Kang's trip may serve a specific purpose.
Kang Seok-ju is the point man when it comes to North Korea's nuclear weapons program. For the past 25 years, Kang Seok-ju's presence in Europe can be also understood as North Korea expanding its diplomatic effort to make progress with regard to its nuclear stance and missile programs with European countries and potentially with the United States.
Unconfirmed reports say senior U.S. officials visited North Korea last month on a military aircraft. North Korean Foreign Minister Lee Soo-yong will be in New York City for the UN General Assembly that begins on September 24th. Speculation is ripe Pyongyang and Washington may revive their dormant communication channels, and Europe has been the site of secret meetings between the two countries in the past. Kang may also lead high-level talks with Japan during his stay in Switzerland. His visit coincides with a seminar on the Japanese abduction issue slated for September 10th in Geneva, which senior Japanese officials are expected to attend. As Pyongyang takes strides to re-engage with Washington and Tokyo, some say Seoul could ultimately be the one left out of the diplomatic circle. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Now, on a related note to that report there, North Korea held a secret meeting with Japan in Kuala Lumpur last month to discuss the issue of Japanese nationals who were abducted by North Korean agents in the 1970s and 80s. Citing diplomatic sources, Japan's Kyodo News Agency reported on Tuesday that a senior North Korean official met with Japan's top diplomat for Asian affairs, Junichi Ihara, in the Malaysian capital on August 21st, but little progress was actually made during this secret contact. The report said Pyongyang did not provide any new information on the abductees, but demanded Tokyo lift additional sanctions in exchange for the first report on its investigation into the issue. The two sides failed to fix the exact date for the release of that first report, which was initially expected to come out in the second week of September. Now, North Korea will be sending its athletes competing in the upcoming Incheon Asian Games to South Korea starting next Thursday. Seoul's Unification Ministry said the North sent a letter via the Inter-Korean hotline on Tuesday outlining detailed plans for its participation in the much-anticipated sporting event. It said the first group of North Korea's 273-member delegation will arrive in South Korea on September 11th. The delegation will be divided into 6 different groups that will all fly to the south using a route that passes over the West Sea. The Asian Games officially kick off with an opening ceremony on September 19th in the South Korean port city of Incheon. Time now for a look through the international headlines we're following on this Wednesday morning. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim, standing by at the news center. Good morning, Eunice.
Good morning, Mark. Islamic State militants in Syria and Iraq have released a new video, this time purporting to show the beheading of captured U.S. journalist Steven Sotloff. The gruesome video, titled "A Second Message to America," looked a lot like the execution video of another U.S. journalist, James Foley, released 2 weeks earlier. The masked man in the clip, presumably the same man with a British accent, said the killing was the promised retribution for continued U.S. airstrikes in Syria. At the end of the clip was another hostage dressed in a similar orange jumpsuit, identified as British citizen David Cawthorne Haynes, whose life the Islamic State fighter threatened to kill. In Washington, the State Department said intelligence analysts were working to authenticate the video. The family of Steven Sotloff said they were grieving privately while waiting confirmation. The 31-year-old journalist had freelanced for Time and Foreign Policy magazines before disappearing in Syria in August of last year. Meanwhile, U.S. President Barack Obama is on his way to Estonia this morning, where he will try to reassure Baltic states rattled by Russia's apparent incursion into Ukraine before moving on to Wales to attend a NATO meeting that's expected to approve the creation of a rapid response force to counter Moscow. This as Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is calling on Washington to pressure Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko to give up its military operation and turn to a political solution when he visits the U.S. later this month. Earlier, a leak of a phone conversation revealed Russian President Vladimir Putin telling the outgoing European Commission president his forces could conquer Kiev in 2 weeks upon his order. And turning to the Ebola outbreak now, a warning from the head of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The number of Ebola cases is rising and rising fast.
There is a window of opportunity to tamp this down, but that window is closing. We need action now to scale up the response.
He went on to say that there is an answer to the outbreak never before seen at this scale. He said it came down to 3 things: resources, technical experts in healthcare and management, and a global, coordinated, unified approach. This comes as another American doctor is said to have tested positive for Ebola in Liberia, and he has placed himself in isolation. Britain's parliament has rejected Beijing's calls to stop an inquiry that would inspect Hong Kong's progress toward democracy. Britain had handed Hong Kong back to China in 1997 under the promise that the city would be able to keep its freedoms and autonomy. But recent protests by pro-democracy activists have brought that issue under a microscope. China had warned that relations could be risked if the UK parliamentary inquiry launched back in July continues.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
Now, despite the deadlock in the National Assembly over the contested Seoul ferry bill, the government and the ruling Saenuri Party have tentatively agreed to increase next year's budget by 5%. That would put the budget at around $370 billion, which is lower than the 6% increase government ministries and agencies had requested, and far below the 10% spike analysts had been expecting when the new economic team rolled out its stimulus measures back in July. Welfare programs will see the biggest budget increase, accounting for more than 30% of the total budget for the first time ever. The government and the ruling party plan on finalising the budget by the end of next month before putting it up for legislative approval. Now, Korea is putting the brakes on its push towards an emission-free auto market amid mounting pressure from local and global automakers. The government said Tuesday that it will delay carrying out its scheme to cut carbon emissions. They're going to cut it by another 5 years, push it back to the end of the year 2020. Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan said the plan places too much of a burden on automakers, but also car buyers, while having very little impact on the amount of emissions that are put out. The system would charge consumers who purchase vehicles with high carbon emissions, while giving incentives to those who buy eco-friendly models. But the government says it's still carrying out an emission trading system starting next year, and also expanding subsidies for hybrid and electric cars. The days of going into a bank to do simple financial transactions are pretty much behind us in this day and age. Rather, the vast majority of us use ATMs for deposits and withdrawals, and our PCs or smartphones to transfer money. These habits, combined with the banking sector's efforts to boost their profitability, have prompted banks to shut scores of branches around the country. Our Song Ji-son reports.
1 out of every 20 bank branches have closed down over the past year. As of the end of July, the total number of bank branches in Korea stood at just over 5,100, down 5% from a year earlier. That's the biggest decrease in 17 years. The 1997 Asian financial crisis that folded 5 small-sized banks and shuttered nearly 1,000 branches triggered a chain of mergers among Korean banks. The move was followed by major restructuring that closed down more branches, and internet banking and automation have further reduced their number.
Only 11% of all money transfers were made through counters at the bank branches, with the rest handled through computers, smartphones, ATMs, or telephones.
Leading the trend are people in their 20s and 30s, many of whom say they only visit the bank when they need help with online banking.
I go to banks once every 3 months or so, only to get a new authentication card, but I use mobile banking almost every day. There's no need to carry much cash around these days, and I can do money transfers instantly on my smartphone.
Such changes led to a reduction in workforce in the industry. Major banks in Korea such as KB, Shinhan, Hana, Korea Exchange, Standard Chartered, and Citibank reduced their workforce by an average of 3% last year. The umbrella group of banking labor unions has called for a one-day strike on Wednesday by bank employees to back their demand of ensuring employment. Song Ji-son, Arirang News.
Now, they're the biggest names in K-pop. Korea's top 3 entertainment agencies scored pretty big in the first half of this year as they diversified their business models, targeting the East Asian market. Very lucrative place indeed. JYP Entertainment's sales in the first 6 months of this year soared the most, as you can see there, jumping nearly threefold on year, followed by YG Entertainment at 28% and SM Entertainment at 20%. JYP saw its first surplus in 3 years from strong sales in the Japanese market, and YG, which boasts global acts like Psy and Big Bang, cashed in on big concert ticket sales in Japan. SM, who have Girls' Generation, continues to do well in its stronghold countries, China and Hong Kong. Now, on to some health news now. Local researchers say they've found the key cause to why cancer spreads, raising the chances and hopes for many of beating the disease that touches so many people. Our Kim Min-ji reports.
About 17,000 people are diagnosed with lung cancer in Korea every year. 80% of them are fatal cases. Cancer cells travel through blood vessels and spread to other organs of the body, making it difficult to treat, especially among lung cancer patients.
Even if the patient receives an operation, there are cases where they fail to recover because of the spread. The patient needs to receive treatment that does not allow the cancer to spread.
Korean researchers for the first time have found 2 key substances that are involved in the spread of cancer to other organs: a particular protein that controls cell growth and an enzyme that produces active oxygen. The researchers say these proteins and enzymes cause changes in cancer cells, making them multiply in number and causing them to spread.
We found that changes that occur in complex 1 or P21 has an effect on the spread of cancer in patients. We hope to carry out strategic treatment that will be able to control the spread.
On average, 66% of all cancer patients are able to survive 5 more years. However, if the cancer spreads, the figure drops to 18%. But effective control of the protein and enzyme identified by the researchers is expected to raise the survival rate of cancer patients significantly. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Now, in some cultural news, Korea's rapid development of ballet culture has benefited from an open exchange program. Our Im Yoon-hee takes us to one such program. It's called K-Ballet World, and it's currently taking place in Seoul's quintessential theatre district, Daehangno.
Ballet is one of the world's most recognized forms of dance, celebrated for its beauty, its grace, and its capacity for the exquisite. Anything from the classical to the contemporary, it's time once again for the K-Ballet World Annual Gathering of ballet students and dancers from some of Korea's top ballet troupes, as well as from around the world.
Through this relationship with foreign countries, we can develop the culture of Korean ballet. It's also a great opportunity for choreographers to stage their works to a wide audience, including those abroad, as this year's theme is Korean ballet to the world and world ballet to Korea.
The ballet extravaganza was established specifically for the development of Korean ballet through exchanges with companies around the globe. And it's through these relationships and networks that have enabled Korean dancers to excel in both the classical and modern forms of ballet. Dancer Seo Deok-in has a family history of ballet in Korea, but he himself went abroad to learn the techniques used around the world. And as a result, he now has a better understanding of the similarities as well as the differences between ballet cultures, a knowledge he can use to strengthen his own career.
Especially in Asia, they're more technical people. They're more kind of speedy and more active. They do like this kind of stuff. In Europe, there are more details, slow and more emotional. They speak like this, slow and more emotional, and this kind of stuff. So, well, I prefer Europe because this is my style, but well, it depends of the people.
As with anything, preference will always vary. But one thing is undeniable, and that is the fact that Korean ballet dancers have advanced through the art in just a short span of time, demonstrating extreme technique and strength, which has gained the Korean ballet culture recognition in the global community. Im Yoon-hee, Arirang News.
And a good Wednesday morning to you all as we kick things off with the Korean national football team, who's set to play a couple of friendlies in the month of September. And on Tuesday, the senior team got together to begin their training. The team still without a head coach will be led by interim head coach Shin Tae-yong and 2 other assistants. And as the players got together, a lot of question on how the team plans to change up their match compared to the Brazil World Cup. And with midfielder Lee Chung-young being named as the captain of the national team, they'll be facing off against Venezuela this coming Friday, followed by Uruguay on the 8th. And speaking of the national team, let's move over to the men's national basketball team, who's currently competing at the 2014 FIBA World Cup in Spain. Now, with the team losing their first 2 games, they faced off against Slovenia, hoping to win their first game in the tournament. And once again, the three-point defense a problem for the Korean national team as they give up 11 three-pointers in the game as Goran Dragic puts up game-high 22 points for Slovenia. Despite Korea taking the lead in the first quarter, a 30-point third by Slovenia gives them the win here, 89-72, as Korea drops their 3rd straight game. And now moving over to domestic baseball, where the Suwon KT Wiz, who's set to become the 10th KBO team next season, finished up their season in the Futures League. And not a bad start for a first-year team as they finished the 2014 Futures League season in 3rd place as they placed themselves in top 5 in several categories such as wins, ERA, batting average, and home runs. Now, as the team prepares to join the KBO next season as the 10th team, many fans wonder how this change will affect the league next season. And now finishing things off with Tuesday night's KBO action, we had the Tucson Bears and the Kia Tigers rain out in Gwangju, as well as the LG Twins and the Nexon Heroes in Seoul. But the SK Wyverns and the Hanwha Eagles got their game in. However, the game ended tied 7-7 after a rain-shortened game. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the NC Dinos take on the Samsung Lions. And of course, going into the game here, second inning man on third, Lee Jong-wook RBI single gives the NC Dinos the first run of the game. But not done yet, Lee Tae-won 2-run double to left field here gives the NC Dinos the early 3-0 lead. But the Samsung Lions come alive, scoring twice in the 4th inning and 4 times in the 5th as they take a 6-3 lead. But check this out, NC Dinos end up tying the game 6-6 in the 8th before scoring 4 runs in the 9th to take a 10-6 lead. But holy cow, the Samsung Lions answer back with 4 runs of their own in the bottom of the 9th inning as the game gets called due to rain as well. 10-10, your final score. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. It's been pouring in Seoul from last night, and it's forecasted that the rain will pick up as the morning goes on. And even heavy rain advisor was issued in Seoul and its surrounding areas, as about 80 millimeters of additional rain is in store for the capital, and the rest of the peninsula will also get heavy showers throughout the day. And heavy downpours are expected from early this morning into the afternoon in the capital, so it will lead to a traffic chaos this morning. So please drive with extra caution out on the roads. And temperatures will be a lot cooler than yesterday, so let's take a closer look. The morning lows here in the capital starting out at 19, then the high in Seoul will rise to 22, while Daegu and Gwangju and Busan should all make it to 25. this afternoon. Now, for other regions, it looks like Jeju Island and Daejeon will top out at 28 and 25. Dokdo should see highs of 23, while Mount Gyeongang gets up to 15. Don't forget to gear up with rainproof accessories before heading out. Now, that's all I have for you at this hour, and let's send it back to Mark in the studio.
Thank you very much, Jeon, for the weather update there. And those are the stories we have for you at this hour. Korea Today is coming up in half an hour's time, and we'll be back throughout the day with more news updates. And I'll be back with a full newscast at 10 a.m. Korea time. Until then, goodbye.